everything is going to be all right. And we'd like to believe it, but do we? This year, we don't know. Well, we know how much this year has cost us. We don't know how much next year is going to cost us, 2022, but we find out today. Are you going to pay more when you import your goods from outside the country? How much is it going to cost you to get from here to Tema? How much is it going to cost you if you're going to Kaswa? How much is it going to cost you to put food on the table, to feed your children's school fees? How much is it going to cost you to get dressed? How much is it going to cost you to buy your shoes? How much is it going to cost you to put fuel in your tank? How much is 2022 going to cost you? This morning, the Minister of Finance will present the 2022 budget to Parliament and to us. And we're all wondering how much it's going to cost us. Now, today we'll be bringing you live coverage of the budget, but before the budget, we'll be discussing a lot of things, really. We have the figures, the estimates, the projected costs, our projected expenditure, and this morning we'll be breaking it down to prepare you for what is to come. Let's put it like that. Ezolaye will be joining us from Parliament. Charles Ayite will be joining us from Abosokai. We have our correspondents from all over Ghana asking you how you feel and what you expect from the budget this morning. That and so much more coming up on the AM show today. My name is Enimoa Enimado, and I'm not doing it alone. Even though Israel is not here, there's an amazing team, and we're going to bring you the best of today's show. Stay tuned in.
Hello, my name is Evans Mensah, and you can relive all the fun and excitement on Top Story, Newsnight, and of course, Ghana Connect via podcast. All you need to do is to log on to myjoyonline/podcast. Search for your favorite show and relive the moment. Joy 99.7 FM, your radio for discerning listeners.
Good morning and welcome to the AM News. Our very first story this morning, the minority in Parliament says it will not be part of any budget that will impoverish Ghanaians. The NDC MPs want government to cut down on expenditure and are also cautioning against the introduction of new taxes. But the majority MPs believe any measure adopted by the government in ensuring the recovery of the economy from the ravages of the COVID-19 pandemic is justifiable. Some of the MPs have been sharing their expectations ahead of today's budget.
Are tight. Ghanaians are complaining. The cost of living is very, very high, given the fact that the rate of inflation is 10.6%, and we are witnessing an average increment in salaries at about 4%, and also the high cost of living, both with food inflation and non-food inflation, especially petroleum products, which has a cascading effect on the general cost of living. I expect that the minister would come up with some mitigating measures, especially cost-cutting measures in some sectors that he can accommodate. When things are tough, when the economy is tough, what you do is to cushion people. I've heard the issue of COVID. It's true that COVID might have an impact, but Ghana is not an island. We have examples in Senegal, in Tanzania, in Kenya, in Ethiopia. They are our contemporaries, even Cote d'Ivoire. They are not coming out with such astronomical tax measures. Because tax increments can also be a disincentive towards productivity.
But we need to maximize revenue.
Yes, you need to maximize revenue.
Because of COVID, businesses are struggling.
Already revenue is being maximized. The GRA has indicated that they are meeting their targets. Petroleum products alone, we are making a windfall of about 600 million. Cocoa production has gone beyond 1 billion. And so when it comes to the revenue measures, I am convinced that we are meeting the revenue targets. We're with GRA at Imprayaso. Okay. They told us that their target that has been set, they are achieving that target. And so if they are achieving that target, if there's a windfall with oil revenue, if there's a windfall with cocoa prices, and so revenues are increasing, we'll be looking at the figures. We'll interrogate them. We'll be interrogating the figures, both tax revenue and non-tax revenue. But from the report I'm getting, the revenues are not that bad. Okay. It's the cost or the expenditure side that we ought to look at and see whether we can cut costs and balance the budget. I think that should be the main issue. The key problem is the debt servicing. Let's be honest, it's the debt servicing in terms of the interest payment and the principal, which is the amortization. That is where the challenge is. And so I think that we should look at that. The other area is where we are paying, but we are not reporting for. There are a lot of payments that we do. If you take Get Fund, if you take ESLA, if you take the Sinohydro facility, and some other areas that the state pays. But for very strange reason, the state has decided that it's not part of our national debt. And yet we are paying for that. That puts a huge strain.
Meanwhile, Speaker Alban Bagbin has warned the legislature will under no circumstance accept a cut and erratic release of its allocation. According to him, the situation where Parliament literally begs the executive for financial releases will not happen this time, warning any attempt to deny Parliament the required allocation will influence how the House cooperates with consideration of the estimates for the various sectors of the economy.
In Parliament itself, after the approval, will have to go cap in hand, begging the ministry for the release of its own budget estimates. There's no way that I would tolerate that. No. We won't go to the Ministry of Finance to beg for the release of our estimates. It must be done, like it's done for others. And so, it's refreshing to note that the issue that we are raising here, particularly dealing with public goods and services for the citizenry, is so crucial at this time, where the people of Ghana are looking up to us for hope. I can tell you that the word politics or politician now sounds so sour in the mouth of many Ghanaians. They don't want to hear it at all, but we cannot do without it. What do we do to bring up the spirits of the people? So Parliament is the hope, and we cannot afford to fail the people of Ghana. So while these factors are very important, I think there's a need for us to go beyond that.
Now, in the Ashanti region, traders are particularly dissatisfied with the rising cost of general goods and services and are expectant that the 2022 budget statement will ease the cost of doing business. Mona Lisa Frimpong has more in this report.
The 2021 budget statement and economic policy promised to raise 72 billion Ghana cedis revenue to the government and increase GDP by 5%. Now, whether this can be achieved or not, we wait to see when the budget is read. Since the beginning of the year, the prices of flour, sugar and margarine have increased significantly. Courageous woman, a flour dealer at Asafo, sits leisurely at her shop. The introduction of additional taxes and high freight charges are her biggest fears.
We're importing Nioma. Ukoyi, fleet, ubetuya fleet, ubetuya some charges bebre, and sana ubedrihan more.
Freight charges are high. When our goods are imported, we are made to pay other different charges. How do we make profit?
But would they be chrome charges a gusuono, yabejono, and on our side go nyomanoso. Now watch it and son what me and yabin when your profit. Osai Kwating is worried the price hikes of flour have affected the purchasing power of bakers.
Those who are in the flour business, for instance, we're having a lot of challenges. This morning, today is 15th, we came and then we met an increment on certain goods. Sugar is going up by about 10 cedis, which is not normal. Other things are going up and we actually don't understand. So we're expecting that we reduce certain things for the bakers.
Ahead of the 2022 budget reading, the Ghana Union of Traders Association, GUTA, has cautioned the government against the introduction of new taxes. Anthony Opon is chairman of GUTA Ashanti.
Ahead of the budget release, Ghana Union of Traders Association, GUTA, is expecting no new taxes and, if possible, reduction of some of the taxes, especially on fuel, because the cost of transportation, the way it's escalating, is getting out of hand. And as soon as the transportation fares goes up, it means it's affecting almost every sector of the economy, and it makes things difficult for us as traders.
35-year-old driver James Akon laments the persistent increase in fuel prices has affected his livelihood.
Fuel prices are increased every day. The liters we usually buy are unable to carry us through the day. We are making so much losses, and we want the prices stabilized.
To create more jobs, Executive Director for the Center of Economics and Business Research, Gordon Newlove Asamoah, says policies should be put in place to support businesses.
In this budget, I expect to see what the Finance Ministry is putting in place or the government is putting in place to help local businesses, the small and medium-scale enterprises. They form the chunk of the employers, and therefore, if government wants us to create more jobs, then it has to pay attention to the local businesses. Most of the tax reliefs are given to foreign companies who come to Ghana to do businesses, neglecting the local ones, especially the medium-scale enterprises.
As a citizen, what I would like to hear when the budget is read is job creation, because that's the most important function of every government, as that is going to provide the source of livelihood for many citizens. From Kumasi for Joy News, Mona Lisa Frimpong reporting.
So away from the budget, but still in the Ashanti region, new facts are emerging directly linking a lecturer at the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology to the disappearance of his wife. That's according to the state attorney prosecuting the case. On Tuesday, November 16, 2021, a Kumasi High Court denied a bail application for Dr. Wilberforce Agri, who has been accused of kidnapping his wife, Rodaline Amoah-Darko, an employee of the Lands Commission in Kumasi. Counsel for Dr. Agri filed the bail application after the Asukwa District Court earlier denied him bail and then remanded the accused person to reappear on November 26, 2021. Now, they argued that continuous detention of the lecturer is against his fundamental human rights. Ohim Interior has more for us in the following report.
According to Defense Counsel, led by lawyer Frederick Kankam, their client was ready to deposit his passport at the court and submit himself to every order as the court may deem fit by his bail condition. But the state attorney prayed the court to deny the accused bail because new facts directly linking him to the disappearance of her wife have emerged. According to her, police investigators have been interrogating 3 witnesses, and granting bail to the accused may interfere with investigations. The High Court, presided by Her Ladyship Priscilla Dikru, denied the accused bail. She acknowledged every charge can be bailed and the continuous detention of the accused is against his fundamental human rights. The court, however, deems the timing of the new facts as explained by the state attorney may interfere with the facts of the case. Meanwhile, friends of Rodaline Amoah-Darko and her work colleagues who were in court say they are satisfied with the court decision to deny the accused bail. They include members of the Ghana Institution of Surveyors and the Lands Commission. Whilst promising their support for the family in search of Rhoda, they are also appealing for justice for their colleague. Regional Lands Officer Stephen Odro-Kwatin tells Joy News the office has been cooperating with police and the National Investigations Bureau. According to him, some officials at the commission have already given statements to the investigative bodies.
We've given the police and the NIB the needed support from the word go. Initially, the police came to our office. We wrote a statement, and then I called on my other colleagues to also do same, and we didn't submit it to the police. And the NIB also, officials from Accra came, and then we did same when they interrogated us. And I think based on the evidence or the statement that we submitted have led to what we are seeing today. And that is why the husband was picked. We are happy the bail was not granted today because, as I understood the lawyers, there's new evidence, and that has been analyzed, and then we'll see the way forward.
Rodalyn Amuadako was the regional financial secretary of the Ghana Institution of Surveyors before her disappearance. Representative of the institution, Amasewa Akwa Abebio, said they were in court to offer support to their disappeared colleague.
To tell Rhoda wherever she is that she has a professional body behind her, she has a corporate institution like Lands Commission behind her, and so we will forge ahead and ensure that Rhoda is found, dead or alive. We cannot just sit back and watch such a hard-working, intelligent lady just disappear. All we are seeking is justice for Rhoda.
From Kumasi, for Joy News, Oimi Teria reporting.
And in the NSMQ, old students of Kita Senior High School are hopeful that winning this year's competition will propel the building of a sea defense wall to save the institution from being washed away by the sea. This follows the massive destruction of some communities in the area by tidal waves. Speaking for the old students, Francis Kata said the existence of the school, which is one of the best in the Volta region, is threatened by the sea.
So on my left are supporters of the Kita Senior High School, and they're excited about their performance today. They had a landslide victory against Adventist Senior High School here in Kumasi, and also Komna SHS, Islamic SHS. And I'll be speaking to them on how they found their team's performance. So how was it for you today?
Oh, it was a cool job. We knew that from the very beginning. We came here with an agenda. And if you indulge me, let me use this opportunity to say a few things that I penned down during the course of the contest.
Okay.
I would like to use this opportunity to sympathize with the good people of Keta, in whose name and honor we contest and glorify. The issue of storm surge or tidal wave poses an existential threat to our 68 years of existence as a school, and ultimately many more years as the people of Keta. It is a real and present danger. Let not our fate be confined to the history books, when others read about us and say we once existed but are no more. Already, the ravenous sea has taken substantial mass of our land, as has already been alluded to by our forebears. When Professor Kofi Auno and Kwesi Brew wrote about the sea eats our land at home and the sea eats our land, respectively. In international affairs and diplomacy, what we call viability is a real thing. If we sit down unconcerned and the sea eats our land, we become unviable in international affairs, and it diminishes with our bargaining power in international situations. On the basis of the foregoing, and at hindsight, I would like to appeal to those in authority and those with the position of power to change the course of history, to give the construction of the sea defense project the much-needed priority in order to scoop us out of the ever-embracing arms of the sea. I asked for a minute, but if you could grant me more latitude. The unfortunate happening at the Fuveme Basic School demonstrates to us, in essence, what is in store for us as a school if the inertia continues. It poses an existential threat to us, because if the sea continues to eat our land, we are a few kilometers from the sea. So if nothing is done about it, very soon our existence will be no more, because it will ravage our school from existence and we will not be talked about anymore. We are 68 years. When the school was built, the school was far from the sea, but now we are a few kilometers from the sea. So we are pleading with those in authority to salvage the situation by giving the construction of the sea defense project the much needed priority.
Let's talk about your performance today. How do you rate it?
We wanted to make a statement, and I believe through this contest, the scoreline, we have been able to make that much needed statement. We are coming with the force of the gods, with the force of God Almighty, and we believe we will not disappoint the good people of Keta and the Volta region.
Still on NSMQ, and the girls from St. Louis SHS have dwarfed the Giants from GSTS and stunned the seminarians from St. Hubert's to advance to the quarterfinals of the ongoing National Science and Maths Quiz. They managed to stop the one-time champions and escaped a hot chase from St. Hubert's to become the only Kumasi-based school to have registered a spot in the quarters. They say the host and win hope is still alive.
And so you are hearing in the background the action, and in fact the jubilation in the background from the girls from St. Louis, where they were written off, and what was tagged as impossible now is just unfolding before our very eyes as the possibility. At the end of their contest with St. Hubert, what they have won just by the skin of their teeth anyways, doesn't matter. Let's talk to the girls quickly and find out what the feeling is like. Congratulations. I don't know what to say. Now everybody wrote you off in this contest. You surprised all of us.
Yes. This time we are coming with a loud bang. They didn't expect this from us, and we surprised them. We know we're even surprised.
You're surprised yourself?
Yes. We didn't think we'll come this far, but it's by the grace of God. And we know He's going to see us through. Okay. So they should expect nothing but the best from us.
I was told when you had the prelim stage, I did an interview. You told me, oh, we should watch out. They're going to blow our minds. And you have indeed blown our minds. What do we expect from you? I mean, the quarterfinals. It may look more difficult in the quarterfinal.
It may look more difficult, but they should look up to so many surprises. They wouldn't see it coming, but they will only see the greatness of God. They should just watch out for more from St. Louis Senior High School. That's all we have to say. We don't talk, we just show actions.
Now, a lot of the schools here are saying that they don't talk, they only show action. But we've seen a lot of the Ashanti regional schools, they said it was going to be a host and win. Now you seem to be the only Ashanti regional school that is standing going into the quarterfinals, at least at this stage. That puts some pressure on you.
Yes, it does, but then, as the Dutchman would say, Vain wil is in weg. Where there is a will, there is a way. We have the will, and with God's power, He will create the way. So yes, Louis is hosting and winning. Yes. Ashanti region. We are the only school left, and we are surely going to take the win.
Well, that's it for the AM News. Coming up next is a newspaper review. Don't go anywhere.
Hello, my name is Nathaniel Atto. You can catch up with all the fun and inspiration on the Joy Sports link here on Joy 99.7 FM, together with all other shows over and over again. It's very simple. All you need to do is go to myjoyonline.com/podcast and relive all of those fun moments over and over again. Joy 99.7 FM, your radio for discerning listeners.
Welcome back. We're just going to dive into the newspapers now. And my buddy, Joseph Akable, is joining us this morning. Israel will be coming live to us from Parliament, so don't miss him too much. He'll show up eventually. But Joseph, are you going to start with the daily graphic? Israel usually uses like 12 minutes to do the daily graphic. So that's the record to beat. So we are looking...
The last time I timed, we just do 2 minutes, or even lesser.
Okay, well, over to you then.
Yeah, so we'll start with the front page of the daily graphic. We'll just do the headlines, then we'll look at some few stories inside. 2022 budgets today anchors on digitalization, skills training, and entrepreneurship. The daily graphic has some details there. 4 convicted of gold deals. It's also on the front page. And minors to receive Pfizer COVID-19 shots. And Saboba tragedy, stop using pupils for labor. Education Ministry directs the Ghana Education Service. The back page has this story about the lands minister declaring war on illegal logging cartels, and Ghana Water Company goes after defaulters is also on the back page of the daily graphic. The center spread has this story about the ministry reviewing fisheries and aquaculture policy. Comes along with a photograph of Mrs. Mavis Harkumson, the Minister for Fisheries, and book on mental health care launched. I'm sure this should be of interest to you anymore.
Yes. Are you going to tell me about it?
Absolutely. We are told that there's a book on the history of mental health care in the country has been launched here in Accra. It's said to be the first of its kind as it seeks to provide information that will help improve mental health care delivery and professional training. It was co-authored by the professional training and has the chief psychiatrist among other experts contributing to it. And so, I mean, I guess we all know how we generally treat mental health issues in the country.
Yeah, I'm struggling to get excited about the book, though I'm sure it's great, but also looking forward to seeing how much is going to be allocated in the budget for that. A few weeks ago, we had a conversation, and some of the psychiatrists were telling us that over the years, there seems to be some improvement. It's very slow, but there's some improvement. But every time you drive out and you see, people on the street, who could be well, who are not well, it's like progress is not fast enough. It's still pretty slow. So
I remember there was a story Manuel brought about this woman who was found on the streets with a child.
The one she had tied to...
Yeah, and they wanted to get her into a mental health facility, and finding space for her was a major problem because of the infrastructure issues that we have. And I remember some about 2 years ago when the Sport Money Show did that series on the mental health, Accra Psychiatric Hospital specifically. I mean, at that time, government gave the plan that they intended to build some new mental health facilities. We just have less than 5 actually, serving the whole country. But we've not seen that happen.
And even the states that they are in.
They are not the very best.
Yeah, anyways.
But some other very worrying story is from Saboba. The headmaster asked the students to go to the farm, and unfortunately, while they were on the boat, it capsized and they lost their lives. It's on page 16. And we are being told that the Ministry of Education have been speaking about that. The ministry is saying that it should stop using peoples for labor. In fact, it's contrary to the GES code of conduct. Did you do such activities?
You're funny, right?
I had so our Greek teacher, we used to go to his chemistry teacher actually, but he used to teach us integrated science. We the non-science student. We used to go to his beans farm.
Beans?
Beans, yeah.
Okay.
If you've harvested beans before and you are buying gobe, I mean, we did a story about the price of beans increasing.
Yeah.
You will not complain.
You wouldn't.
No. Harvesting beans, your waste. I mean, because you have to bend and harvest it in bits before the whole trashing and clearing process. And
so I'm sorry, he put that under what, practicals?
It started initially that way. I see. But eventually, it was actually, that's the thing. I mean, it was actually an activity that we did enjoy on Saturday mornings because it meant that we were not going to eat from the dining hall and we're going to have better food, because when we go and harvest from the farm, we eat at his bungalow.
Okay,
so before we go back to the dormitory, so we eat different kind of food, like better food.
That's an interesting story.
Yeah. But I mean, it's contrary to the GES rules, and that's what the Ministry of Education is talking about. The final one in the daily graphic will be that of the High Court, the Kaneshie District Court actually adjourning the Susu case.
I hear he's chilling in the US. I think one of the papers has a picture of him. Yeah.
Okay. So
like just chilling.
Well, okay. The Daily Guide has a photograph of him, and he's. The caption is that Francis Osu is cruising in the US with Kelvin Taylor, and the headline is Osu dodges court again. But the official explanation from the speaker to the court is that he's still on parliamentary duties. We are told he's attending a conference on behalf of Parliament.
I see.
The case has been adjourned to 29th of November, hoping that he'll be back. So that takes us to the Daily Guide. I'll finish the front and back pages. Then
wait. Are you done with the Daily Graphic?
Yes, we are done with the Daily
How are you done? In how many minutes? Like 5 minutes? No.
You're being unfair to Israel.
No. I cannot accept that. You have to give us a couple more stories. No.
So we'll do a couple more stories, not from the graphic.
From the Daily Guide. No, but there was a story about kids getting the Pfizer vaccine.
Yes.
Not sure if you saw it.
Yeah, it's on page 16 actually of the Daily Graphic.
Okay, do you want to just tell us about that one?
Yes, and so we are told that the Ghana Health Service says it has received approval from the Food and Drugs Authority to lower the age limit for administering the Pfizer vaccine there. It says until approval last Monday, the national vaccination plan only captured people 18 years and above. Currently, data shared by the Ghana Health Service as of October 21 indicated that the country had taken delivery of 1.3 million doses of the vaccine. We are told by the Director General that the country is expecting to receive some more, and so they are urging people to go ahead and be vaccinated. And there's a quote here that says that Pfizer has been fully registered for people 12 years and above by the USA FDA. Ghana originally registered it for 18 and above. We have, through the FDA, reduced the age limit to 15. And so what appears to be the global standard is from 12 years up. We pegged it at 18, but now we've brought it down to 15 years. And so you have no excuse not to get vaccinated. In the past, the excuse was that the vaccines were not available. Now they are available, but people are actually not going for them.
Okay, can I do that, the Ghanaian Times?
Yes, you can.
So front page of the Ghanaian Times, same stories, pretty much. It's a national disaster. That's the drowning of the 9 students in the Oti River. The Minister of Finance to present the 2022 budget today. What are you looking forward to hearing about the budget?
I don't know what the approach will be for the hikes in fuel prices. I mean, it's really something that I'm feeling the brunt of, and so that is what I can only expect. That, I mean, the calls from the driver unions that some of the taxes, they listed about 5 of them, which they believe that they are not necessarily should be taken off, and so that is what we expect to do. I mean, I'll be surprised. A lot of people are suggesting that there will be some new taxes.
Yeah.
I mean, if that happens, I'll find it to be contrary to what government and the MPP as a party promised Ghanaians. There are numerous sound bites of Dr. Bawumia saying that they will move the country from a taxation economy to a production economy. They are going to scrap nuisance taxes. They are not going to impose taxes that only stifle business and just enables the states to get money. And so it will be surprising that from 2017, when you wanted to digitize, or now they said digitalize the economy to get more money, you are now at the point that you claim to have turn around the economy by way of making it more digital friendly. You now want not to be able to take advantage of it to get more money, but rather to seek to impose some more taxes.
More taxes. You know, you just mentioned moving us from to a production
economy.
Yesterday, I went to Abosokai, and I was speaking to the PRO for the Spare Parts Dealers Association, and he said that there's not one thing that is sold at Abosokai that is produced in Ghana, not even your fan belt.
I see.
So I don't know how that production economy dream is going, but maybe we should ask Mohammed's sixth form teacher. Might be able to tell us. Fake lawyer grabs for alleged 80,000 CD recruitment scam. Special prosecutor petition to investigate. Okay, some company. Oh, okay. Kwame Nkrumah Memorial Park rakes in 1.8 million CDs in 4 years. That's interesting. I haven't been. Somebody promised to take me one time, but they never did. So maybe I should go.
It's a nice place. You would love it.
Okay. Don't use violence to express grievances. Critical thinking from leadership can fix unemployment. Okay. Asante Hene urges GIS to tighten security at borders. GSS commits to provide credible data to accelerate national development. Okay, so census spread. That story of the 9 students drowning in the Oti River. The minister presenting the budget today. Victims of tidal wave to be relocated. These are pretty much the major issues that have gone on for the past few weeks. Some chieftaincy issues, some SHS issues. Parents urged to inculcate godly values in children. I think the parents are going to have godly values to inculcate them in the first place. So. But anyways, parents have been urged to teach and inculcate godly values in children to help them lead good moral lives. A Sunday school teacher, Master Wiseman Mensah, who made the call on the Children's Day celebration, says that if we train up a child in the way that they should go and they're old, they won't depart from it. So it's on you really to train your children in such a way that they're good adults. So I guess that's just a gentle reminder. Let me see. Okay, let's get into some football. City player Mendy charged with 2 additional counts of rape. So Manchester City footballer Benjamin Mendy has been charged with 2 additional counts of rape. Mendy is 27. He faces 6 allegations of rape in all after initially being charged in August with 4 counts of rape. Very unfortunate. Gerrard eager for first match as Villa boss. So Steven Gerrard, who is taking over Aston Villa. Okay, that's interesting. Injury concerns for Liverpool ahead of Arsenal game. Harry Kane tipped to become England's all-time top scorer. And some Ghanaian football. Okay, not much Ghanaian football. And Israel is not here today, so I can't really tease anyone about Hearts of Oak. You're a Kotoko fan, right?
Absolutely.
Bono East region to become rice capital of Ghana. That's the regional minister. And Brekum Holy Family gets 600,000. Okay, COVID-19 treatment center. That's it for the Ghanaian Times.
There's an interesting Hearts of Oak story on page 16. I think I'll take a shot and send to Israel. We are told that a Hearts striker has been remanded.
For what?
We are told he was arrested on Sunday for allegedly assaulting a police officer at the Accra Stadium during the Hearts Aduana Stars game. And so he made his first appearance before the court on Monday. The adjudicator denied the request for bail and remanded the footballer into police custody for 2 weeks. Okay, so he's actually a former Hearts of Oak striker. He's currently unattached to any club after ending his
but he's still Hearts of Oak.
With the Lebanese side.
still.
Yeah, I think a Kotoko supporter wrote the story. I mean, because you know the headline boldly says
Hearts striker remanded.
And then when you read the body of the story, you actually realize that he's a former Hearts of Oak striker. But the front page of the Daily Guide, Sosu dodges caught again. Has a photograph with Mr. Sosu and Kevin Taylor, like I mentioned earlier. Tragedy hits NDC, NPP. We're talking about the deaths of the former Transport Minister, Jifa Ativo, and Malon Enipa. That he was recently nominated as the DCE for the Guan district, and unfortunately, he's dead. I mean, they didn't have a DCE, and so, you know, they don't have a member of parliament due to the creation of the new region and where the area fell. And so they've been talking about it. We're talking about the Central Kofi, Akpafo, Likpe, and Lolobi areas. And when the president announced the DCs, they were left out, and eventually they got a DCE, but we are told he's died, unfortunately, and that of the former transport minister as well. I mean, we commiserate to their families. They should stay strong in these times. But some other stories on the front page. Minister Lord's Bono Chief's tree planting exercise. It's also on the front page. The center spread. You know the song Adult Music. Don't sing the line you sang off air. Yeah, but the title of the song is Adult Music.
Yeah, that's okay.
It's a song that featured Kwabna and Samini. The one that starts by Get.
You said I shouldn't.
No. The part that
provoking me.
It's the part. There's a part I don't want you to sing. There's the part that is a tree bam you're doing. That song. Those who don't know the song. So if you're wondering why I'm talking about the song, Kwabna says he's been defending sexual content in songs.
That song is yeah. It's a very sexy song. It's very, and the video. So yeah.
It is. So sensational high life artist Kwabna has made a claim that everyone loves sex, and that is why he sings about it. Agree?
Agree.
To which one? He's
all
singing
of
about
it.
Or,
everything. The whole thing.
We are told that he made the assertion in an interview with Andy Dusty on our own platform, the Joy Entertainment Daybreak Hits on Thursday.
Okay.
So, I mean, the article lists some of his sexual content songs.
Okay.
So there's obviously adult music. I mean, there's another one to Tokro. That is also Tokro. And we are told that both of the songs received backlash when it was released. Critics argue that the songs are completely sexual, and Kwabna seems to have turned a deaf ear to all of that. He says...
Why are you laughing?
No, the story is interesting. It's well written. He says here, sex sells and everybody loves sex.
Exactly.
Period. He says, I'm a poet, an artist, and I describe scenarios and talk about scenarios and be able to be creative. And so that is what he's been saying. Okay, so he has a new song out with Shatta Wale, actually. The title is Kokonsa. So he was on the show to talk about that new song.
And then came up with this.
Then the issue of the fact that he has a lot of sexual music out there.
But most of our songs today are very largely about sex.
I disagree with the description of today because most
of our songs, starting from Moses.
And you can go through the Daddy Lumba songs of the early 2000s and the late 90s. I mean,
so most of our songs have been about sex.
So perhaps, I mean, Kwabna is right when he says that it's always been a part of us, and it's been, I mean, because I mean, I doubt anyone has even a creative mind today to compose a song like Moses by A.B. Krento from way back.
Okay, I think you've made your point. I think you've made your
It's always been there.
Are you done?
Yes, I mean...
There's nothing else and nothing interesting?
Okay, so
your silence clearly speaks that
there's an African makeup and beauty fair that is opening.
Okay. International news, maybe? I think that's page 3 or page 5.
Okay.
No, page 5. Yeah.
That's on page 5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's happening in the world?
France clears major migrant camp amid UK tensions. It's here. And then we have the story about some Chinese nationals. I'll not try and mention the names. They were arrested.
No, don't, please.
Yeah, they've been arrested. We have been told that they are being handled properly. But 2 explosions rock Ugandan capital within 30 minutes. At least 3 police officers were killed and more than 24 people injured in the first of 2 explosions in the Ugandan capital, Kampala, on Tuesday morning, according to journalists on the scene. We are told that they rocked the city center within 30 minutes of each other. And 1 blast went off near the central police station and another near Parliament. The cause of the explosion was not immediately clear, and no group has claimed responsibility for it. And so, a very unfortunate situation there in Uganda. Motorbike gunmen kill at least 15 in Nigeria is also another story in the international segment of the Daily Guide. I'll quickly run through the final, then I'll be done. The front page says, all thermal plants in Ghana to transition to gas. It's come from the Energy Ministry. Sosu's trial adjourned to November 29. And Afenya Marken apologizes for using wrong photo for sound winning at Keta. And that's the deputy majority leader. Yeah, for those of you who don't know him, he had put out a photograph claiming to be sound winning that is taking place at Keta in the context of talking about the recent tidal waves. He has since apologized, and also because the photograph is actually from Sierra Leone. So he has since apologized, and he has actually gone ahead to file a statement in Parliament, an urgent question asking the Works and Housing Minister to come and explain what specifically they are doing to deal with the tidal waves. And so we hope those in Keta who are devastated by the tidal waves will forgive him.
Forgive him.
Yeah.
So this morning in the news, the Speaker of Parliament, Alban Bagbin, said that they're not going to be begging the executive to be releasing money and all of that. Otherwise, they're not going to be compliant and all of that. What do you think about that? I mean, it's nice to have the kind of power to say, you know, like, if you don't release money, we go ball and we can actually do something. And the rest of us kind of just sit down and wait for everything to trickle down.
I mean, it's a bold call. I mean, Alban Bagbin is a tough-talking speaker. The problem really at this stage is that they approve the expenditure. So the budget will be presented. Within a month, they will approve it. So it's more or less like a quid pro quo relationship.
Before. You've done it.
Except that their action is coming before. So they are approving it before they are going to get their allocation.
They're going to get their, So you're trusting them that they will actually do what they said when you've already... Exactly. It's like you say yes to someone that you want to marry, trusting that they will be good to you.
Exactly.
But you've already said yes.
Yes.
There's not much that you can do about it.
You discover afterwards that they are not being good to you. So, I mean, that's what is happening.
Well, I hope that's not the story for Parliament.
Yes, except that post the budget, there will obviously be some government business that will take place in Parliament, like various bills, various agreements.
Exactly. So obviously,
you have
like
the option of
for your husband, there will be no food. You know, go chop you see what I mean? So yeah, pretty much. Okay, all right. I think, well, at least they have a little bit more power than we do. Are you done, or can I run through the daily statement?
The last headline on the front page of the Final says, "Stop using peoples for child labor," as Deputy Education Minister warns, as government commiserates with families. And so that will be all for the Daily Graphic, Daily Guide, and the
Finder. Okay, the Daily Statesman, digitalization, entrepreneurship, skills development, top priorities in 2022 budget. I don't know if the average Ghanaian would agree with this. Okay, I guess if you break it down, it's pretty much the same thing. Digitalization, entrepreneurship, skills development. I think fuel prices, money in our pockets, strong dollar.
Yeah.
Really, it's what a lot of people are.
These are matters that don't immediately
appeal to
or address those challenges.
Yeah, those challenges.
They are the solutions, but they are not immediate.
Exactly. Like, for example, I mean, skills development is cool. It sounds really good. But I mean, people who already have skills and are sitting at home and don't have jobs, is a problem. Entrepreneurship sounds good, except those who can't get capital to actually begin their businesses. So I'm hoping that this will be a
you left the other one out.
I pronounced it. Look, my anointing for pronouncing it is, I'm hoping that this year's budget, I can't wait to also find out what it's going to be called. Every year there's and then there's the scriptures, and then there's all of that, the drama of Kenuforiata.
I read about a possible theme about being your own boss. Say be your own boss.
That's the theme for.
That's what I read on social media as a possible theme. I'm not too sure.
But this year is in English. It's normally in Tree, isn't it?
Yeah, we had the Asempa one and.
Yeah. So what would be your own boss in Tree be?
Boss in Tree is what?
Bossu. Okay. Other stories. GES directed to end child labor in schools. Bawumia urges politicians to use positions positively. Okay. Just a second, guys. Just going through the paper to find out if there's something that's interesting. Okay. Kwabna said a lot, didn't he? I can never be attracted to another man. That's what he said. I'm sure Andy Dosty must have asked him about what. Okay, I guess about the LGBTQ+. He said, I can never be attracted to another man. Never. He said he has an interest in women, but he also added that he understands sexuality and sexual orientation as something that is genetic. Okay, Kwabna. They used to call me Adrinfi. I've been bad from teenage. For me, that's Samini. Yeah, Samini, we can tell. Mel Gibson to direct Lethal Weapon 5. So that's a new Lethal Weapon coming out. Ghana turned focus to 2021 African Cup of Nations in Cameroon. And if you're a basketball fan, Chicago Bulls end 8-match losing streak against LA Lakers. England, what are the key issues facing Southgate before the Qatar World Cup? Can we do My Joy Online before we go quickly? Just the headlines from myjoyonline.com. Whilst we're waiting for that, the Daily Dispatch 2022 budget, teacher and nursing trainee allowance to cost government over 400 million Ghana cedis. Professor Ikiwa Champong passes on, may his soul rest in peace. Oh, and my friend, Attorney General, NDC deceiving supporters with petitions to police on election 2020. All right, boss. Okay, so myjoyonline.com. This morning, just waiting for that to come up on your screens. Okay. This is the part where I'm tempted to sing foul. Okay, so here we are, myjoyonline.com. The headlines. Okay, Kenuforiata to present 2022 budget today. Cath forensic accountant abuses CEO of abuse of public office and drags him to Shraj. Police want public to help arrest killers of prophetess in Takwa. Review of benchmark value policy will lead to 25% increments in prices. Spare parts dealers. So Joseph, it's going to cost you a lot more if you need to fix the shocks on your car.
Yeah.
Or whatever, 25% increase in prices. And you better pray that nobody steals your battery either, because that's...
Yeah.
Have you padlocked your battery, your car battery?
No, I haven't. I've not had reason to, but I've heard reports of battery thefts. It appears to be thriving business.
Yeah. So you have to padlock your battery. You haven't seen it before?
No.
I see. Okay. Yellow fever outbreak, 25 dead, 18 hospitalized as vaccination rolls out. Ken UST lecturer denied bail as new evidence allegedly links him to disappearance of his wife. We brought you that story in the 6 a.m. news. Okay, so much more on My Joy Online, business, entertainment, everything that you need to know. But we'll be continuing our coverage of the 2022 budget. Very big thank you to you, Joseph Akable, for joining us this morning and for sacrificing your early morning bamboo for
Thanks
us.
for having me.
We're grateful. This is still the AM show. We'll be joining Israel. Israel will be joining us. He's in Parliament this morning, and we'll be having a very interesting conversation on what to expect in the budget and how much 2022 is going to cost you. Hopefully, we'll all come out of it alive. Stay tuned in. Coming up next is the sports.
What's up, guys? My name is Sammy Forson, host of the Weekend City Show and Ignition right here on Joy 99.7 FM. Well, anytime you happen to be busy and you miss out on your favorite shows right here on Joy FM, here's what you can do. Log on to myjoyonline.com/podcast. Just go on there and you'll find all your shows on demand 24/7. There you can catch up. Remember, Joy FM remains your radio for discerning listeners.
Welcome back to the AM show. Now, the Minister of Finance will this morning present the 2022 budget statement to Parliament. Ahead of that, Ghana's business community is upbeat about three key issues: reducing taxes, raking revenue, and supporting ailing industries. Joy Business's Charles Ayite puts it all in perspective in today's budget edition of AM Business.
Ghana's business community and civil society have been very vocal on the additions and deductions needed in this crucial budget. This is no ordinary budget. The challenges brought on Ghana's economy by the COVID-19 pandemic reflect how revenue mobilization has been slow, as Ghana's tax to GDP, or total value of goods and services within the economy, hovers around 12.5%, lower than the sub-Saharan Africa's average. Take a listen to Professor Peter Korte, Director of ISA.
Some are not yielding the needed revenue. So like the sanitation levy, for instance, the last, the quarter 2 2021 figures show that they are not yielding much. It is the COVID-19 levy, health levy, as well as the financial sector levy that is raking in the revenue. But sanitation levy, for instance, is not bringing in much. So a review of these taxes to see whether they are being efficient or we are rather spending more money collecting this little revenue. You scrap them and replace them with something that will bring in more revenue to the system. You find that agriculture and manufacturing, the labor-intensive sectors of the economy, are not growing as much as one would have expected. And if that is not the case, that is not happening, it's going to affect our job creation efforts. Because these are critical areas that employ more people. So you want to channel resources into, apart from the other sectors, ensure that these two critical sectors grow at a very high pace to absorb labor. Of course, COVID-19 has affected a lot of things. But as we move out of the negative effects and record positive growth, we ought to grow in the areas that are critical, rather than growing in services, low-value services, retail.
Ken Oforiatta has hinted that the budget will be job-centered, with a focus on creating avenues for entrepreneurs to remain competitive and expand. Recent footages at the Accra International Conference Centre's job fair and even the security recruitment by government show how the scramble for limited jobs continues to intensify. Graduates have been tasked to be their own bosses. And for those who already are, the expectations of the budget is so high. Henry Kobler is founder and CEO of iSolve Africa. He spoke together with Joseph Ekpaha Kofi, the co-founder and chief executive of 2D Technologies Company Limited, both concerned about the prospect of entrepreneurs in the 2022 budget.
Entrepreneurship seems on a cautious path where you don't just get people to say they're creating their own businesses, because most people don't get to even understand the entrepreneurship path. They've not been trained well to acquire the skills to be able to raise businesses that are going to get on world standards. But I think that it's actually the way to go, because we've seen quite a number of good businesses that have gone through the mill that are actually existing in Ghana, and so could create that job processes both in the public sector and in the, as the point to say, how are we leveraging on these digitization processes to create these jobs and also to raise the needed revenue that the government is looking at to be doing most of the projects that it seems to be getting. Again, what are the incentives that are available for some of these entrepreneurs that they could harness on, and how easy is it for them to get onto these processes. I mean, if you're given tax-free forms and other things, how easy it is for me to just get in and to be able to, or just two incentives that I could use to get onto my business. So I think that it's a laudable idea, opening up the skill for people to take on their own mantles. But I think that a lot of training, capacity building needs to be available, and a lot of incentives also needs to be available for people. And again, there has to be target process on a sector. I mean, I would always go for the agribusiness sector, the ICT sector. I think the industry sector, it gives a more wide leverage to people to be able to create, doing what we call a buying and selling of projects or products that are coming from China and other countries, which doesn't necessarily get into the scope of entrepreneurship. So I think that the more point where we could leverage and get on.
We don't see you are not selected. You have to pay this. You have to. I remember one awards they did recently, and they didn't give any reason. They said we were just rejected and all that. And I see student entrepreneurship, so that by the time they even graduate, they have jobs created, instead of all of us waiting for the government to do that job creation for us.
Meanwhile, the chief executive of the Chamber of Entrepreneurs Ghana, Sharif Gali, wants some government injections.
We are hoping to see that in the media budget review, the finance minister mentioned that this government, and on youth entrepreneurship that has become the core of discussions in Ghana, we would want to hear some of, aside the youth bank that I believe the finance minister is going to talk about. I'm sure they will even mention the amount of money that they are going to allocate for that, which I can assure you. But then we want to see more interventions, like my brother just said. How are we supporting the? That's what we also are expecting to see, and we've made some input is on the SMEs. It is high time we started being deliberate about the SME, because it's the core of our economic development. We do not need to be doing this cosmetic service to the SME sector. We need to, how are we going to support them to assess technical support, capacity building, and some of the taxes that are imposed on SMEs? How are we going to harmonize them? If not even take them out, how are we going to reduce them in a way that SMEs will not be affected?
One sector of the economy decimated by the impacts of COVID has been the hospitality sector. Even though the sector was enlisted on the $100 million Ghana Cares program, players in the industry have still been calling for more strategic injections from government to keep them afloat. Dr. Akanyameke Jr. is president of the Hotels Association of Ghana.
We have come to appreciate that the government has no disposable funds to inject stimulus package into which we received very little. And even as we speak now, the 55 million Ghana cedis, and that's for the whole industry, not only for hotels, for the whole industry. Even the disbursement of that fund is still work in progress. So we don't want to go to that angle again. About that to help us to thrive in our business. And that's where the fuel prices comes in. And that's where utility tariffs. And by that, let me quickly say that we pray that there will be policies in this budget which will not force the PURC to start thinking about adjusting we don't want any new taxes. We are burdened already with taxes, and if possible, if one or two can be reduced, that would be good. And thus, remember one of the budget updates, I think for 2020 or so, there was this unemployment insurance scheme.
Exactly.
I would love to hear the progress on that, because some of our industry players, workers, were unemployed during the COVID. Plans for such unemployed people come on board, because we honestly haven't heard much about it, and we don't know much about its implementation. But again, you mentioned the Ghana Cares project. We want some updates on it, because we know that some amount of money has been disbursed. We want to know how far we've gone with that.
The aviation sector forms a critical part of Ghana's economic viability. Sean Mendes is an aviation expert and the immediate past operations manager for domestic carrier Africa World Airlines. He expects a raise in domestic air taxes. He says doubling the existing domestic air tax from 5 to 10 cedis will be a small amount to the consumer, but will give a larger pot for domestic aviation infrastructure, maintenance and growth.
I think it's important for the aviation sector to actually look at this budget as one that is very important for the reconstruction of basically an industry that has been decimated over the last couple of years due to the pandemic and everything else. I think one area that is going to be very interesting to look at is going to be domestic airline taxes. Right now, the domestic airline taxes in Ghana are very, very low. They are at 5 Ghana cedis per passenger. And unfortunately, this has not grown with inflation. And as a result, you find that the Ghana Airports Company is unable to actually use the domestic revenues that it gains from passengers flying domestically to spend on its operating budget for domestic flights and for maintaining these domestic airports. And furthermore, they have to then cross-subsidize these domestic operations with the revenue that they gain from the international flights. This has been a problem for them in the last couple of years because international flight numbers dropped to zero during the time of border closures and are still very much deflated from the 2019 figures. So something along those lines might be something that is really essential. Even a doubling of those taxes from 5 cedis to 10 cedis, a 5 CD increase on airfares is something that a consumer could probably absorb without too much hassle, but that would essentially double the operating budget for Ghana Airports Company to be able to to have more resources available to spend on the maintenance and the operations of the domestic airports. Another area where I think budgetary support could be needed in the aviation sector is for Ghana Civil Aviation Authority. Just like Ghana Airports Company, they get a lot of their revenue, in fact, I think most of their revenue, from actual user fees, that is the landing fees and the overflight fees. Every time an aircraft lands in Ghana or uses the Ghana Air Traffic Control to fly over Ghana, there is a fee that is paid to Ghana Civil Aviation Authority. And this fee goes towards maintaining the safety systems, maintaining the oversight and the regulators and so forth. Unfortunately, again, a lot of this has reduced significantly over the last 2 years, and I think Ghana Civil Aviation Authority is looking at probably, I think if they mentioned about 60 to 70% shortfall in revenues from these sources. So definitely, I think we're probably going to see some sort of budgetary support for them, if only to cover up the past revenue shortfalls, as well as to see, what might change in terms of their capital expenditure programs, in terms of their training, in terms of development, and in terms of just basically ensuring that the bare minimum at least is being done to maintain the safety and operations of Ghana's aviation sector, while at the same time not necessarily spending what is scarce funds right now on projects and programs which could wait perhaps for a few more years when there may be better funds available at that time.
The Peasant Farmers Association of Ghana has appealed to government to consider allocating not less than 10% of its 2022 budget for the agric sector. It says in spite of the fact that the agric sector lost its position on the economy to the services sector as the largest contributor to GDP, it was necessary the government took the bold steps in the budget to revamp the sector. The Chief Executive of the Agribusiness Chamber, Anthony Morrison, spoke on this matter.
My expectation are that with regards to the budget direction, we need to support local production in terms of commercial agriculture. All right. We should change the narratives and concentrate more on commercial agriculture, provide other externalities of access to export within these areas, because it's kind of a drudgy situation having to move produce from the commercial zones onto the main market, because we need to develop the agricultural roads. And also, finally, we're talking about interest rates. We need to do something a bit more. Yes, GESEL is doing its part, but we are seeing interest rates going too much, and government needs to do more about it.
But one issue of controversy in the trading community is the benchmark values that the GRA has made its stance on, reversing for some 32 items imported. The Ghana Union of Traders Association is predicting a 25% increase in price of general goods and services should there be any attempt by government to review or reverse the 50 and 30% benchmark values on some selected items in the budget. We hear from GUTA's President, Dr. Joseph Oben.
We of the trading community do not accept and will not accept this directive, and therefore ask members of the trading community to ignore this statement of GRA outright. So we will appeal to the government to, as a matter of urgency, call for the immediate withdrawal of the statement issued by GRA on the review of the 50% and 30% reduction of the benchmark value policy, and not even consider bringing it into the forthcoming budget statement. We know fully well that the government is very sensitive to the plight of the Ghanaian trader and the Ghanaian consumer as well. Overburdening them with another layer of cost, especially at this time, will be an indictment on the government. So we will appeal to the government to, as a matter of urgency, call for the immediate withdrawal of the statement issued by GRA on the review of the 50% and 30% reduction of the benchmark value policy, and not even consider bringing it into the forthcoming budget statement.
In Kumasi, correspondent Mona Lisa Frimpong reports that traders are particularly dissatisfied with the rising cost of general goods and services. As the finance minister presents the budget statement in Parliament, the traders are looking forward to easing the cost of doing business.
Since the beginning of the year, the prices of flour, sugar, and margarine have increased significantly. Courageous woman, a flour dealer at Asafo, sits leisurely at her shop. The introduction of additional taxes and high freight charges are her biggest fears.
We're importing Nioma. Ukoyi, flate, ubetuya flate. Some charges bebre and sana ubedrihan more.
Freight charges are high. When our goods are imported, we are made to pay other different charges. How do we make profit?
But would bakrom hano charges se gusuono yebeje wono eno na wosade gu unioma no so na wache ansa na watumi anya bi no anya profit.
Osei Kwating is worried the price hikes of flour have affected the purchasing power of bakers.
Those who are in the flour business, for instance, we're having a lot of challenges. This morning, today is 15th, we came and then we met an increment on certain goods. Sugar is going up by about 10 cedis, which is not normal. Other things are going up and we actually don't understand. So we're expecting that we reduce certain things for the bakers.
Ahead of the 2022 budget reading, the Ghana Union of Traders Association, GUTA, has cautioned the government against the introduction of new taxes. Anthony Opon is chairman of GUTA Ashanti.
Ahead of the budget release, Ghana Union of Traders Association, GUTA, is expecting no new taxes and, if possible, reduction of some of the taxes, especially on fuel, because the cost of transportation, the way it's escalating, is getting out of hand. And as soon as the transportation fares goes up, it means it's affecting almost every sector of the economy, and it makes things difficult for us as traders.
35-year-old driver James Akon laments the persistent increase in fuel prices has affected his livelihood.
Fuel prices are increased every day. The liters we usually buy are unable to carry us through the day. We are making so much losses, and we want the prices stabilized.
To create more jobs, Executive Director for the Center of Economics and Business Research, Gordon Newlove Asamoah, says policies should be put in place to support businesses.
In this budget, I expect to see what the Finance Ministry is putting in place or the government is putting in place to help local businesses, the small and medium-scale enterprises. They form the chunk of the employers, and therefore, if government wants us to create more jobs, then it has to pay attention to the local businesses. Most of the tax reliefs are given to foreign companies who come to Ghana to do businesses, neglecting the local ones, especially the medium-scale enterprises.
Ghana is set to miss a number of economic targets as the finance minister presents the budget, with investors calling for a reassurance of debt sustainability.
Welcome back. This is the AM show, and you're tuned in to Joy News. My name is Enimoa Enimado, and usually I do this with Izolai, but Izol is in Parliament, so we'll be hearing from him, and when the budget reading starts, he'll be bringing us everything that we need to know, covering that for us. But we're going to have a conversation now, and one question on my mind is, how much is 2022 going to cost me? What's the cost of my survival? Am I going to be able to pay my children's school fees? Am I going to be able to feed them? Am I going to be able to change my clothes, put fuel in my car? And how many minutes is it going to take me to decide whether I want to go to Tema and back? Not just because of fuel, but because possibly I could be paying a lot more at the toll booth. So many things to think about. Are you going to be able to eat your usual fufu and soup? Is it going to be 2 pieces of goat meat as opposed to maybe 4, no more adrene, no more intestines, no more snails for you. All these things we will find out today. Maybe not in this language. It's usually in, very big English when it comes to the reading of the budget. But that's how it affects us. Now, if you have 1,000 cedis and say you're traveling and you need some dollars, is 1,000 cedis going to get you enough dollars to buy what you need? That too is an issue. If you're in business, well, that's a completely different issue as well, because so many taxes, so many things might change. And we've been talking to the spare parts dealers, and they're worried about the fact that some of the cushioning that they enjoy will go away. And of course, that will affect you. It means that if your shock absorbers are not absorbing, then you can't really change them, because possibly it'll cost you 25% more. Yeah, that's what's happening today. Your life is being decided. I have 2 very interesting and dashing gentlemen joining me in the studio this morning for a conversation on the state of our economy and what we can expect today. I think it's a conversation which I'd like to call Brace Yourself. So get ready for what next year's coming. I have Charles Nixon nearby, the Joy Business Editor, and Yao Apia-Latte, who is a financial advisory partner at Deloitte. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning. Anymore.
So now that I finished with my very dramatic intro, I'm wondering, are you wondering if you can eat the same amount of fufu and goat and adrene, if you can still afford it after today?
Yeah, I guess I'm not alone. The concern is all over. And my favorite is a confirm, so I want to be sure whether my confirm will still be going at the same rate as I've been buying now.
Yeah, he's shaking his head. What is yours?
Well, it's quite difficult because, like I always say, you have to look at the current state of the economy and measure it vis-a-vis what is expected to happen next year. So I have been preaching to Ghanaians to be measurable with their expectations, because as we, the finance professionals, accountants, and economists, will always say, we work with numbers. We don't work with the narrative. You might get some beautiful narrative from politicians, but the reality is that things are quite difficult. That's what is currently happening.
Yeah.
So for me, I hope that my disposable income will not shrink that much. That's what I'm praying for. That is why next year, a lot of institutions and workers would have to be measurable in terms of their expectations going forward.
Okay, so why don't we start with the state of the economy today?
Okay, so I'll start from the broader perspective. I guess as an economy that is driven predominantly by commodities. So Ghana is driven by commodities. So first is what we call hydrocarbons. So all the oil resources and the non-renewable natural resources that we mine and explore and sell give us revenue. And then we have trading commodities like cocoa and then gold. Now the good news is the prices of these commodities have stayed at all-time high. So crude oil price, as we speak, it's almost about $80 per barrel. Government in the budget for this year, 2021, estimated crude oil price to be about $54 per barrel. Okay. So you have a windfall. There has been an upside that government is benefiting from, and I think that's a very good development. And given that we are a net importer of oil, the other effect is that we're going to end up paying more.
Okay.
But if we explore and sell more from our Jubilee field, we get the benefit of the increase in oil price or high oil prices. The others are the price of gold. Price of gold went all-time high because when the COVID struck, stock market crashed, and investors found safe havens in investing in gold. Gold will not rust, it will not crash. Yes. So people decide not to invest in the stock market, but to buy gold.
Okay.
As a result of that, gold prices shot up. Even at the time when oil prices were even going to the negatives, gold prices were all-time high. So I think at the time, what we encouraged government to do was to support the production and sale of gold so that we get a benefit of that.
Did they?
The problem, I would say, was it happened at the time when we were also trying to crack down on small-scale mining, the illegal small-scale mining.
Okay.
So we didn't get a benefit of that.
Okay.
But I think that if we had had a proper program...
But what about, large-scale mining? I mean, we have the Ashantis and the, all of that. I mean, could we not, on any level, make some sort of profit? Did it all have to depend on, the small-scale mining?
So that is the age-old problem that we have. That aspect of the economy is controlled.
Full of age-old problems.
Yes, that aspect of the economy is controlled by foreign investors.
Okay.
So their decision is what we ride on. A lot of them did what we call care and maintenance. They stopped production, they stopped exploring, and then left the country because the COVID has struck. And so we had to rely on small-scale mining to help us get the benefit of the increased gold prices. But that production was not enough to sustain what we get from. And the good thing is, the first 2 quarters of the year, we've seen remarkable growth in the economy. So the first quarter of the year, we recorded a 3.1% growth, largely driven by growth in the agriculture sector and then hotel and restaurant subsectors of the economy. These 2 sectors were heavily struck by COVID, particularly the hotel and restaurant subsectors. And when we were getting out of COVID, we realized that some of these sectors of the economy started picking up. And so that drove the first quarter performance. The second quarter also recorded an impressive growth of 3.9%, driven largely by ICT, information communication and technology sector. And we can all understand that because we have now switched in the way we even work. People started working from home, so we relied a lot on information, communication, and technology. We also started spending more, and there were a lot of economic activity, so agriculture also drove the economy. What we haven't done too well is the industry sector. The industry sector has contracted. In other words, it's recorded negative growth because mining shrunk. And I think that's the same problem that I mentioned. That instead of benefiting from increasing gold prices, we rather could not take advantage of it, and mining shrunk. That's why industry sector contracted. But on a whole, I think that there have been some positives. What we haven't managed too well, I will start from the elephant in the room.
Okay.
Our public debt.
Yeah.
Our rising debt levels are going to give us problems going forward.
Because I think I was going through some of the statistics and all of that, and a lot of the money that we are able to get, our revenue, goes to, apart from paying salaries, is paying interest payments.
Yes.
So we're not, and the thing is, we're not even touching the principal.
So I'll give you,
lots of our money.
I'll paint a very nice picture for you. So our budget allocation for 2021 had this picture. Compensation was 27%. Interest payment was 32%. Interest commitment alone was the highest of all budgetary allocation. Capital expenditure was 10%. What we are saying is the amount of money allocated to construct your road, the bridges, and all the areas, we are complaining of tidal waves, was just 10% of our total revenue allocation.
Wow.
And we have 32% to service debt. So your debt service compensation, you can't take people's salary. You have to pay. So compensate 32%, and then interest payment 32%, 27% for compensation. If you put the two together, that is close to 60% allocation for things that are not development or GDP.
Yes. They're just paying bills.
So recurrent expenditure and then interest commitment. So you have very little room to grow your economy. And I think that is one of the things that we are expecting this government to, this budget to address.
So it sounds to me like we are stuck.
And we have to take a radical decision. We have to go with a radical policy to cut down some expenditure in certain areas and introduce aggressive revenue generation programs.
Politically, that doesn't work, though, does it?
For me, I think...
Sorry, Charles.
I think we are in a better position to do it now. I guess we had a pre-election expenditure, which widened our budget deficit. Now, it's good for the government that the government has been retained. They can now take the hard decision, what they call tighten your belt. We should be in the process of doing that because we all don't get any benefit. If we run an economy that does not have a future, that has a future that is bleak, we don't want that. And I think government should take the right policies to correct all the anomalies in the economy.
So you're saying that right now, basically, our future is bleak if it continues in this way?
Particularly, our fiscal consolidation levels, we are not able, our widening budget deficit, because we overspent during COVID. 19.7 billion.
You can't speak in simple English. Like some of our listeners are like fiscal consolidation.
And that's what I explained. Yeah. That we overspent during the COVID.
That's the fiscal consolidation.
Yes, because our deficit widened. And it widened because you and I were enjoying the reliefs.
Well, yeah, okay.
You couldn't have told Ghana Water that continue to bill me when government was saying it was for free.
Yeah.
So when we enjoyed that, subsequently, the budget introduced new taxes.
Because I always asked during that
who was going to pay for it?
The price of the things that are free actually ends up being higher when you actually just pay for something.
And that's it. That's where we find ourselves. So we have to pay for what we have overspent, and we have to correct the problem that we have.
And we are hoping that this will be a good budget.
We just hope it.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, I want to explain the state of the economy from this perspective. I want to go with the balance sheet of institutions as we speak. And currently, if you look at the current liabilities of the government, i.e., interest payment and consumption, like I was saying, it has far outstripped our current assets, which is receivables, revenue. Revenue has been very low to a very large extent. And if you are an institution and you are not doing enough to receive revenue, i.e. to sell, to make money, you will be in trouble. And if you look at the cost element, it has also been problematic because there had been some unbudgeted, funds. And if you read the Bank of Ghana report, the fiscal development report, clearly the central bank cautioned the government in terms of the fiscal sector of the economy. Fortunately for us, the monetary economy has been fairly good. We've seen exchange rate stabilizing to a larger extent. 2-point-something% depreciation is quite reasonable as a country. If you look at inflation, we haven't seen prices of goods and services going up significantly, even though because of the fuel price adjustment, we have seen some level of goods and services, price of goods and services going up. Let me also say this, for ESLA, because of ESLA, we can't take ESLA, that's Energy Sector Levy Act, which was actually established by the previous regime to take care of energy debt. Because of that, the taxes on the petroleum price build-up cannot be taken
away, yeah.
Because those taxes must take care of ESLA. ESLA is actually supposed to retire within 2 to 3 years. But as we speak, because of the problem at hand, it's very difficult to retire. So from the monetary perspective, we've been fairly okay. Interest rates have generally been stable, and that is good. If you run an effective economy, people must be able to borrow with ease, to spend, improve their economic livelihood. Be happy. That is what we call an economy that is thriving. On the global sector, like Yao said, it had been missed fairly in the sense that we've benefited from cocoa price. This year had been significant for cocoa production because we exceeded the target, and for the first time we were able to also break the record in terms of cocoa production. For gold, there had been problem because the sector is dominated largely by foreigners, and that has been the problem. And if you look at a lot of economic reports from other institutions, it's very important for government to get involved, because if we really want to benefit from our natural resources, we need to get involved. And that is the way to go. That is why I'm happy that for the petroleum sector, GMPC gradually is getting involved, so that when we export, largely the receivables or the revenue will come to the country and show up our reserves. So the central bank has done well despite all the challenges. And I would say that before COVID, if you look at the numbers, the fiscal numbers, it was very challenging. People didn't really pay particular attention to that. So for me, if we attribute all our challenges to COVID, I beg to differ in the sense that the debt had gone up to about 260 billion prior to COVID. The deficit was widening because there was a bit of unbudgeted expenditure, which, as we speak, all regime, creates such challenges in terms of the finances. I'll also take us to the recent Treasury bill auctioning. And if you listen to Joy Business, we do a lot of report in that regard. Clearly, government has been struggling to raise monies from Treasury bill sales to finance the budget. You go to the market, sell Treasury bill, the funds usually are used to take care of current expenditure.
Okay.
So that is where the challenge is, because of the perceived risk in the economy. And Treasury bill is largely bought by local investors, the banks. We, the individuals, we buy the T-bills through the banks. And if the banks are being a bit, pessimistic about the economy, then we have a problem. As we speak, interest rates or yields are rising on the T-bill market, because government will have to move fast and raise enough money to take care of expenditure, and that is very critical. You cannot say you will delay salaries of workers.
No, you can't.
So
and sorry, just before you continue, in terms of that, it means that for us who want to buy Treasury bills, it's actually a good time to buy, because you're going to get higher returns.
Absolutely. Once the rate starts rising, then your return at the end of the day, whether it's 91 days or 6 months or 1 year, you get more return than previously.
Except that, of course, there's the risk, which is...
Government, for the risk level of government is very low. Government always would find money to pay, unless the fiscal challenges continue. When it continues, then we would be in trouble, because then we might struggle to raise enough money to take care of certain recurrent expenditure, and that is where the problem is. And you see, people are forgetting that the fiscal economy has direct implication on the monetary economy. If the fiscals are not doing well, in the medium to long term, you have problem with exchange rate. Your cedi will start depreciating.
Yesterday, the cedi in Abosokan was 6.34, I think. Last week, Friday, it was 6.1. Last 2 weeks or so, it was 6.09. It's just going. Like the brakes are not working.
But the good thing is that it's not falling rapidly.
That's a good thing.
You know, that's what I'm saying. We have enough reserves to take care of
we have enough reserves where? Definitely not in my pocket or in the businesswoman's pocket.
It's stuck at the central bank. So
yeah, but it's not translating to us.
You know,
and the reason, sorry, why it seems like I'm having a go at you with this is that so many times we have conversations with economists or people, you know, people who are into all of this. And we hear things like this, oh, it's not, you know, falling rapidly. Oh, we have reserves. Oh, we have, but at the end of the day, what, 10 years ago, if I had 1,000 Ghana cedis, I was going to get $750.
But the rate of depreciation is slow.
But do you get that to the average Ghanaian? That doesn't actually mean much. It just means that 10 years ago, $1,000 was 750 cedis. And today, 1,000 cedis is like 120, 150 Ghana cedis. Yes. So all of it is a lot of, you know, all of that. And our vice president also does it so well. You know, there's this, but do you get what I mean? But in actual figures, if I was running a business, it's costing me more cedis to buy Capri Sun to come and sell to school children today than it was 5 years ago, but I'm actually not making more cedis.
It's because we are not exporting so much. We are importing more. So therefore, you need more exchange rate to bring in goods. That is the situation we find ourselves. But for me, I always speak based on numbers. The rate of depreciation had been relatively better.
Yeah, but it hasn't changed the amount of money in my pocket. No. But it doesn't mean much.
But we are not experiencing that level of, you know, that's the point I'm making. If it is significant, then we'll be in trouble. If the cedis is depreciating at a rapid pace.
There are many business people that would disagree with you because they're struggling.
Absolutely. That is why I'm saying the fiscals are not good, to be honest. So I will rate the economy as a mixed performance. I will not say the economy is doing well. I will rank the economy at 50%. So that is why we expect tougher measures going forward. When we talk about the expectations, we'll get to that level. So this year specifically had been a tight, low budget spending. Because when you speak to people, they will tell you that there is no money in the system because the level of money in circulation is low. And that's a reality. And it is part of the central bank inflation targeting policy and other policies to ensure that the level of the fiscal economy in terms of performance matches the reality.
I think, I wanted to...
So I think on the exchange rate thing, I think the basic rule is that in Ghana we operate a free market economy. So there were years back where the exchange rate was fixed by government. We've gone past that. So you can have a reported exchange rate today of 6% interbank rate. And I like it when your report is carried out, that the rates out there may be different from what is reported on interbank rate. Because you operate in a free market economy. If you go to the bank today, the exchange rate reported is about 6.1%. If you walk to the teller and you ask to buy $20,000, you may not get it. That $20,000 is available in Abosokan where you went to. And that person will not sell it for 6.1%. So even though we are making a strong case that the cedi has been fairly stable, you do not control the black market. And they have the supply. And they decide how much to sell it for. So then that's where the problem is. That you would have a central bank trying to do some moral persuasion that, look, we are putting money, we are injecting forex into the market. But then it's largely controlled by the market. So the market decides where to sell the rate for. And that's why you have a problem. The problem will get exacerbated as we speak because there is strong demand for imports.
Especially at this period.
We want to buy stuff for Christmas.
Yeah.
And so importers are buying forex. And once the demand is high,
obviously,
the price will
go up as well.
And so you wouldn't have so much control over it as we find ourselves.
Okay, so we'll come back and continue this conversation, but let's hit the streets. We're connecting to Love FM's Kwesi Deborah, and he's in Kumasi, and we want to find out what the Kumasians are expecting from this budget. Good morning, Kwesi. Hello, Kwesi. Kwesi, can you unmute? Oh, there you are. Hello.
Yes, can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so what's up?
Anymore?
Yes, I can hear you. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So we're here at a tech junction, and I have a gentleman here I'm going to speak with concerning the 2022 budget presentation. And so, Mr. you're welcome to join us. And we want to speak to you about the budget, the 2022 budget. Is some few hours from now. So yeah, to it. So we're trying to ask you, what are you expecting? What are your expectations concerning the budget?
For me, sanitation is what I am concerned about. The government will say we will channel to health. The government will say school, education. But my concern is on sanitation. If government can inject money into the budget for the system to look clean, I think that's my expectation. I expect the government to tell us that if you get out, the indigenous Ghanaian, if you get out today, you will see the city clean. You won't see any bin outside, because those things causes sickness. If I should tell you the truth, if I should inhale, you check around. If I should inhale this thing for a year, this is where I work. Always this is where I eat, I work, I rest. You see, if this place is not clean, I don't think the system is going to go well. If the government should put money into our sanitation, I think it's going to be well.
Yeah, so anymore, you heard the gentleman, Claire. He says everything must go into sanitation because everything revolves around it. Our health is wealth. And so I'm going to speak with another gentleman also and take his thoughts. So let's talk about this. The budget reading is just some few hours. Anymore, unfortunately, the gentleman doesn't want to speak with us. So I'm just crossing to the other side of the road. I'm going to get some more people there. And you know, this tech junction, of course, we have lots of commuters here. But unfortunately, I had them, but they couldn't wait for us. We gave them a certain schedule and they couldn't wait. So I'm going to speak to some others here and take their thoughts on the budget reading. So welcome to Joy News. But kind of we had to be ready. Budget, you know. Then I will expect it from the government.
And I may expect to say, see, taxes no doors. Taxes no. A doors monument. Obia and Ghana also Obia to tune in anymore. Obia pa or Tonadia, no to near money. Or Pena or Tonadia, Obia Yanchake, Obia and Cheke, or Pa no to yes, Rabbi say, Anka taxes no. Wanted to kakra na monitors obi a woton wade bia na ye monitor na niema na ye mane ba from kakra na so ye ho han kakra masa aduma me ye glass December na glass na 300 cedis and then make say 480 cedis adey 480 cedis de bia me say be 2 weeks bia omo to glass 2 weeks bia omo to nti yesra aban say ye tax na obeyisu kakra man ana say Obama monitors ababa hwe obia njuba na amoto so nyama na esu nti kakra na esu ye hu han enye sa oba akwaji obi adwuma wo a wonya hwiwom wo a wanya adwuma no so amani papa na say case about so nti yesra aban no wo de say taxes no kura wo de wonte so kakra man na yesu ye hu han kakra yesra aban.
All right, so anymore, he's been talking about the reduction in taxes. He's talking about general goods and the fact that the government should try its best to reduce the taxes. And also there must be inspectors around for those who indiscriminately increase the price of their goods. There must be checks and balances so that all these things be controlled. We have another gentleman here we're going to speak with. He works with him. Hey, budget, 2022 budget, then I was expecting from the government.
Oh, we expect to say some more taxes because they say never widening. Because you require one year to lower fame. Because then we are drivers who are complaining. Some complaining so near you fear be some too much. Say 10 persons one year to go and a behind. Was no man fat. Market mind and then you buy and toy in as the taxes in the more heavy, you know, when you're wanted to mine. I said, you know, more tight more. Yeah, bread.
Well, so anyway, I heard a gentleman the same refrain. They are talking about the reduction in taxes. That if government can do its best to reduce the taxes, it means that the hashes are going to go away, and the public, the Ghanaian is going to have some bit of respite when it comes to hashes. So anyway, so that's the streets of Tech Junction and the people, of course. That's what they have to say concerning the 2022 budget presentation.
As from Kumasi, and I think the sentiments are very much the same across board. Reduction of taxes, everybody's concerned about fuel and all of that. But why don't we go to WA as well and find out if it's the same there. Rafiq Salam is joining us from WA. Rafiq, good morning. Rafi, can you unmute, sorry, for us? Hello? I can hear you, but your audio is a bit low, so maybe you can raise it up for us a little bit. Okay, so we'll come back to Rafiq as soon as we get him. But yeah, let's talk about the reduction of taxes, which seems to be something that a lot of people are looking forward to. I'm not. I don't think that there's going to be reduction of taxes. And even if there is, I feel like we're going to pay for it in another way. What's your take on this reduction of taxes issue?
Yeah, so I think government is in a position where they are looking for revenue.
Yeah.
So reduction in taxes would be a hard thing to ask. It's a difficult one to ask government to do. What we are expecting government to do is to take away some taxes that have not really yielded results. So you would see that, for instance, government is getting a lot of revenue from the taxes on financial sector cleanup levy that it imposed on banks. They are getting a lot of money from that, but the problem is that it's affecting banks, it's affecting cost of borrowing. So government should look at that and then find a way of not necessarily reducing it, but find a way of getting. And then there are some taxes that were imposed that are not really yielding any results at all. So, for instance, taxes that were imposed at the pumps, I'm not sure how much revenue they've earned from that. Government also increased the national health insurance levy amount from 2.5% to 3.5%. All these taxes that were introduced in the budget for 2021, we told government that what is going to happen is that it's going to be passed on to consumers.
Yeah.
And the gentleman complained about prices of goods that they are buying. So price of hardware that we use for building materials and all. Inflation for the first two halves of the year. So the first half of the year, second half of the year. So first quarter of the year, second quarter of the year was a single digit. When we got to September, inflation was 10.6%. In October, 11%.
Wow.
That is because some of the taxes that were introduced in the budget were passed on to consumers.
Of course.
Transport fares also increased by 13%.
Yeah.
So all of these are now having effect on inflation. And this gentleman is complaining about he buying glass for 300 cedis as at the end of last year. Today, it's 480. That is a significant increase.
Yeah, almost 100%.
That's a significant increase.
Yeah.
And so this person cannot plan the next 2-3 months.
No.
Because he doesn't know what he's going to sell for 500 cedis by December or by end of December, 550. Yeah. I mean, so if we do not control it, and the danger is wages are flexible up and rigid downwards.
Yeah.
Even today, if government is to scrap all the taxes it introduced, price of these goods will not go down by the same margin.
No, of course not. Of course
so not. Transport fares go. So if today you were paying fares from Accra to, or Medina to Accra, 2 cedis, and we start agitating, the best you can get is a 20%, peso reduction.
Yeah.
You wouldn't get 50% or 100. No, you won't get that. No, they won't do that.
No, they won't.
So, which is why we have to be mindful when we are introducing taxes that are likely to be passed on to consumers.
Because you can't take it back.
Because you can't take it back. Yeah. Even if you reduce the price of fuel, you realize that still the oil marketing companies will be selling at a particular margin. You can reduce it by 50%, but the price that's sold is not reduced by 50%. Yes. So we expect government to at least be mindful when they are introducing some of the taxes that are likely to be passed on to consumers.
Okay.
Because it will stay for a long time, and then it will affect the price of goods and services over a long period of time.
Okay. Yeah. Let's speak to Kweku Kwarteng now. He's the chairman of Parliament's Finance Committee. He's joining us by phone. Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Hi, thank you for joining us this morning. You've just joined the conversation at a point where we're talking about taxes and the expectations of Ghanaians, albeit maybe unrealistic, that some of the taxes will be scrapped, and so that it's taken away from the consumer paying for it. What are your thoughts on the possible scrapping of taxes, some taxes?
Okay, to begin with, I think my first observation and that I'd like to put across is that taxes are paid by consumers. All right, it ought to be understood from the very beginning that when government imposes taxes, unless it is specifically targeted at the profit of companies and businesses, those taxes will be paid by consumers. That has to be understood from the very word go. And when citizens pay taxes, it is those taxes that would form government revenue, with which government can deliver the services it is required to deliver to the people. Now, having made that point, we also have to appreciate the context in which this budget is coming. If you look at this particular administration, and I don't pretend that I'm speaking for this administration, you know, we had come from an IMF economy. In 2015, we went into an IMF program. And then what it meant was that we're having difficulties financing our expenditures, just for the ordinary math understanding. And as the then administration put it, we went to the IMF for policy credibility, so that the things we say we're going to do to get out of our IMF, we will be believed more because of the way we have managed ourselves. Now, fast forward to early 2017 when the new administration came, the improvements did not even warrant our immediate exit from the IMF. So the administration had to continue. Now, I am setting this context for us to understand where we have come from. Now, this administration, in my opinion, once it got power, even though we had come from an IMF program, it seems to me that because of the commitment the NPP administration made to people in the 2016 election, government was having, one, in order to maintain the credibility of people, deliver on those commitments on the one hand, whilst at the same time, you're dealing with an economy that was coming out of IMF, that had been bruised in many ways. Now, that posed a fiscal challenge. So you would see that in 2017, government attempted to remove some taxes, which for me is a fundamental belief of this administration, that economic management should focus on production rather than taxation. So government sought to do that in 2017, and a whole range of taxes were removed. But because government had made a decision, rightly or wrongly, to keep faith with the people in respect of the commitment made, those expenditures were deployed anyway. Now, that was going to come with considerable fiscal pressure. Now, we often have forgotten that all the social interventions, free SHS, and nurses training allowances restored, that we of this party love to trumpet, they come with considerable fiscal pressure. NAPCO and all those things, so they are sitting on the economy. In spite of all that, I think some progress was made, and for the fact that we were even able to borrow on the back of the new macroeconomic indicators to retire old debt that had been incurred at a time we had weaker macroeconomic fundamentals, showed that there had been some improvement. But those improvements, in my view, were improvements that you could get only with an economy that was coming from an IMF, and yet an economy that was supposed to shoulder so many social intervention programs. Now we entered 2020 and COVID hit us. And some 12 billion revenue shortfall, that is, revenue that we are programmed for, did not come. But COVID did worse than that. You know, apart from COVID denying you of revenue that you had programmed for, COVID itself brought expenditures that we had not even anticipated. So you needed to provide frontline workers with some tax relief. You needed to build isolation centers. You needed to do a lot of things. So COVID did two things. It made it difficult to realize revenue that we are programmed for because world economy shut down, domestic economic activities were disrupted, and therefore your revenues did not come. But at the same time, you needed money to deal with the COVID itself. Now that again brought additional fiscal pressure. The reason I have given this background is that we are going into, so from 2020, in 2020, government had to come to Parliament to say some money you do not have. We call it deficit. So you are realizing a revenue of 10 cedis. Maybe your expenditures, you are allowed to go to some 12 cedis. So there's a deficit of some 5% or so, whatever the figures are. The law allows you to do a little bit of that. And then the law says, if you think for unforeseen shocks, you cannot do this, come to Parliament and get this rule relaxed for you. In fact, in 2020, government therefore had to go to Parliament. Parliament, in the light of the pandemic, therefore allowed government to spend money that we do not have, far beyond what the Fiscal Responsibility Act normally would allow. So we did some 11.4 or so deficit. Now, the government had to signal to investors that going forward, we would recover this lost fiscal ground. So if you look at the last year budget, the government has drawn what you call the fiscal deficit path in the medium term. That is to say, in 2020, because of COVID, we did some 11.4. In 2021, we want to reduce the deficit in 2020 to reduce it so that by the medium term, we would go to that 5%. We are in a regime of fiscal consolidation. Now, if government is going to read a budget and anybody suggests to government that this is the time to reduce taxes, I listen and I say people just don't understand what we're talking about. I close on this. You know, this budget, and sometimes it will come to Parliament, we will all look at it, but I would be disappointed if this budget does not signal that government wants to close the gap between its expenditures and revenues. The last thing I recommend to this administration is, I was proffering advice before the budget was prepared, was that never attempt to reduce any taxes. If there's the opportunity, you even need to demonstrate how you can realize revenue on the one part. Two, we also have to demonstrate which expenditures we're going to cut. That going forward, some big expenditures would have to be sacrificed. Otherwise, we will not have the fiscal consolidation that we need. And the last word before I go, you asked, but what is the point of fiscal consolidation? Why do we have to bother and get a good difference between our revenues and expenditures? The answer is this, and it goes to the poor man. If government spends money it does not have, there are people who have invested in this economy. When we float bonds, they have dollars outside, they change the dollars, they come to Ghana, of course, to change the dollars, and then they invest in cities. So all the bonds that government has been borrowing over the years in order to supplement the budget, and this has been a characteristic of our economy maybe in the last 20 years. All that money that investors bring, they look at your economy and if they don't see that you government, you are making effort to close the gap between your revenue and your expenditure, they begin to disinvest. So they would go and say, I have bonds in cities, I no more want to invest in Ghana, they disinvest. Then they want to purchase dollars and exit into other economies, because they are looking around and looking at which economies should take their investment.
Right.
Now, as soon as I'm closing, as soon as they begin to do that, the city begins to take a nosedive, and the effect on the poor man in the light of such a development oftentimes is there for all of us to see. You just don't want your city to fall. You don't want your interest rates to hurt. So I conclude on this. As for expectations, it is hard to say exactly what decisions have been made in the policy room. But what I pray for is that government does not succumb to the political pressures that have had around.
Okay.
And provide us with policies that ultimately would hurt the fiscal. If we do that, the poor man will pay for it in the future.
Okay, so I have two questions for you before I let you go. The first one is, you speak about major expenditure that has to be cut down if we're going to bridge that revenue expenditure gap. What are some of your recommendations for our expenditure, which if we cut down, might make a difference to the amount of money that we have in our pockets?
Well, to be honest, at this point it's too late. And government is going to present a budget today. I ought not to be, I'm a member of the NPP, I ought not to be sounding policies that effectively is a judgment on what is coming. What I can say is that, one, and I've made this point before, there must be, the expenditure cut must start with efficiency. And I hope that this budget would, just as a way of carrying the citizens along, begin to demonstrate efficiency in areas where, for instance, government and politicians are known to be spending. I mean, a demonstration that the efficiency exercise is beginning from home. We say charity begins at home. It will be good. And that may not even necessarily need to be captured by the budget, but we need to signal that. If we want to review, again, the administration, travels, and those things, it will be helpful. Mm-hmm. Those things, they don't normally give us a lot of savings. But what they do is that they give the citizens the assurance that we are in this together, and that if you begin to cut public expenditure, we can accommodate it because we know it's a national exercise. One, whether it is captured in the budget or not, going forward, we will need to do some of those efficiency gains. As for the big expenditures, I do not think this is an appropriate forum to have those discussions. We really need to take a hard look at all the expenditures, and the public must be made to understand the fiscal situation Ghana is in now, the consequences for the poor ordinary man, so that we know it's a discussion for the ordinary people, and see which big expenditures we like to cut. So if you listen to me, I'm almost saying I'm unwilling to step forward and mention any big expenditures that will grab the headline. But I'm just saying that as a country, we ought to be interrogating that what expenditures we should cut in order that we can bridge the desperately needed closure between our expenditures and revenue going forward.
Okay, just the last one before you go. So we know that the government got almost 30 billion CDs from the IMF, World Bank, etc. And it doesn't seem to have improved the fiscals. Do you want to just tell us why not?
You said government is getting what?
Almost 30 billion CDs from the IMF, World Bank, etc.
But a lot of those monies, especially during COVID, the money we always say, we got this from the IMF, we got this from the World Bank, they were loans. They have contributed to our public debt.
Yes, but how have they also then helped? They may be a loan, but for example, if you go and get a car loan, you use it to buy a car. So the car is evidence of the loan. So what is the physical evidence of this money that we collected? And how come, perhaps some would say that it hasn't made our lives better? Unless, of course, we're going to, say that we used it for COVID-19
partly. COVID-19 created special needs, and some of those credits went into COVID-19. But you see, traditionally, and it's not just money from IMF, loans from the IMF and the World Bank. We've been going on these road shows to get to the capital market to borrow. And those monies are even bigger than what the IMF and others are giving us. So the question we should be asking is, why do we continue this big borrowings? What do we use it for? Look,
basically.
People have forgotten that every year when we read the budget and we say the gap between our expenditure and our revenue is so much that we are even doing a deficit of, let's say, 4%. That 4%, you're going to have to borrow to make it up. So when people ask for salary increases, and we want all kinds of things, every community wants asphalt. And anytime I hear multimedia, there's this problem here, there's this problem here. But I've once had an interview with one of your colleagues who had said that they were even going to hold government accountable, not just for your manifesto commitment, but also for the things that politicians have promised on platforms. Journalistically, it sounds interesting that there are some things you did not write down, but you said them, so we will hold you to it. You hold government to it. If you are lucky, government says, well, I promised, but in the circumstances, it's not good for the economy. If you are not lucky, government says, well, once I promise, I would borrow and deliver and get my political credit. Now, when those things, we call for all those pressures on government, we are consuming the money that we are borrowing. So you don't have to see, of course, some of the borrowings would go into capital projects, it will go into the things we see, the roads you're seeing around, all the roads that are being constructed, almost all of them are being constructed with borrowed money. So some of them go into that. You go to multimedia, you are in parliament, all the laws that are passed, we label them. This loan is for this, this loan is for this. But there are some loans we contract just to break the gap between our revenues and expenditures in every budget year. So those are where the monies go to. So my conclusion to this question, and it's an important question to me, because whenever I hear that we have borrowed, we don't know what we use the money for. Ghanaians, we don't like to pay taxes. Look, if you look at our peers, Senegal and all those people, their revenue to GDP is higher than that of Ghana. We have a very non-compliant population. It is coming partly from maybe our culture, and therefore domestic revenue has not been enough to finance the things that everybody has been calling for, as though the politician can conjure something from heaven. So my proposition is that going forward, not just for this budget, but going forward, we should take a hard look at the budget. We want to hear more budget education by the media, more revenue education by the media, that we should forget about wanting improvement. You can change politicians in and out, so long as the citizenry continues to have this non-compliant attitude towards payment of taxes, and therefore even the cost of compliance becomes so much when people are not willing to do it themselves and government has to enforce. It is also very costly when you have to deal with that subculture. Now, so long as we continue to do that, we will change government in and out, in and out, in and out. Our circumstances will be the same. So if we don't want the debt, we should do efficiency, and I have already said that charity must begin at home. We must signal that from the political level, we are making sacrifices. Okay. We must let those efficiency get to the public. If you're not paying taxes, you have to pay. Okay. Expenditure that we cannot accommodate, we would not take. Once we do that and we pay our taxes, trust me, this country is a beautiful country. It has a beautiful framework for development, and Ghana would be an amazing country.
Okay. Thank you for the hope that Ghana can be an amazing country. I'm going to resist the urge to continue this conversation because I think that the average Ghanaian has trust issues and corruption is not good for us. And so, I mean, the argument would simply be that, you know, well, I mean, if there's corruption, then I'm going to be corrupt too, because if I pay my taxes, I don't trust that,
Can I make one small comment to this?
Yeah, sure. But like in 1 minute, though.
Yes, the politicians that we claim are corrupt, if it was just the politicians, trust me, in the next 20 years, all the politicians we have will probably be out of politics. They would have moved on.
I mean, not if they're like E.T. Mensah and co.
I'm making a quick point. I'll leave you.
Okay.
I say that if it was just about corruption in government, in 20 years, almost all those in government now will be out of government. They will be replaced by people like you and I. Sorry, people like you and others. We will be out. Now, if those ordinary people say it is the politicians who are corrupt and they are complaining today, when they get into politics, why don't they change the culture? The truth is this. We are very corrupt in many areas of national life. The grooming starts even sometimes from school. Go and see SRC accounts. Right from there in the churches, the chiefs selling lands to develop their communities. Where are all those monies? It is only when those people who we have been nurturing with the corruption, and we almost think that is not really a big deal. We read the Auditor General's report, a lot of wrong things are happening. The media does not make as much noise about those things until those human beings get into politics, and somehow we think that what they have grown up with, merely because they have entered politics, it will go away. It won't go away. I think the corruption in politics is a reflection of the corruption in our society, in our churches, and wherever we are groomed. And if we, as a country, we do not want it, let us all begin to deal with it together.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for joining us this morning, Mr. Kweku Kwarteng, Chairman of Parliament's Finance Committee. We're grateful for your time, as always. Why don't we go to Wa now and speak to Rafiq Salam, who is on the streets, because we want to know what's happening in Wa. Hello, Rafiq. Rafiq.
Hello.
Hi. What's up? What's happening in Wa?
Hello, are you hearing me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Why is very cool, calm and collected, getting up this morning, waiting for the reading of the budget, and then there are a lot of expectations in the Upper West region here, especially what it has to deal with education, the roads, and also the taxes that are kept on petroleum prices, and that's what the people are talking about.
Okay, so what are they saying exactly?
Hello?
What are they saying exactly? Hello, Rafiq.
In terms of the taxes on the petroleum. Hello, are you hearing me?
I can hear you. Go ahead.
In terms of the petroleum taxes that are on them, and the people are saying that for them they think that it's cut road prices. Transporters and also passengers are complaining about the increment of petroleum products. And for them, they are thinking that it's affecting their business, their businesses here. I spoke to a lot of drivers and also these tricycle Kambu riders, and they told me that day in, day out, the monthly or weekly increment in the petroleum product is really affecting their business. And so for them, they are expecting the government to have a lot of cut in the taxes on petroleum products to enable them do their business. The other issue has to deal with the issue of roads in the Upper West region. Many of them are of the opinion that the Upper West region doesn't need lots of hospitals. What they need is that they need to have good roads. And so that once they have good roads and they have one centralized point as a hospital in the municipality, they can deal with it. And so for them, they are telling government that they need to fix the roads. They need to do that, but they are expecting a lot from the budget. So the government will come out with something concrete on the roads in the Upper West region.
Okay, what about fuel prices and, taxes? Are your people also concerned about fuel prices, the cost of food, cost of fees, all those things? Or is it really just, the roads and the hospitals and, the major infrastructure that has to be put in place?
The cost of living in the Upper West region somehow has gone a little bit higher because this is a place most of the people, over 70% of the people in the Upper West region are farmers, and so you expect to have a lot of food in the Upper West region. But some few months ago, even the region has been recorded a lot of increment in inflation, and so which is really affecting food prices here in the Upper West region. A bag of maize somewhere at the start of the year used to sell around 120 Ghana cedis. As I speak to you now, 50 kilogram of a bag of maize is now going over 300. And so the people are not really happy about what is really happening here in the Upper West region. And also with regards to the petroleum products, the people are saying that the increment, weekly increment, that's how they call it.
Okay, looks like we're having a bit of an issue with internet connection, connecting to Rafiq, who is in Wa. Okay, so why don't we listen to some of you who have been talking to us about your expectations for the 2022 budget.
Reduce the fuel price for us. We should just reduce it totally. Actually, we are struggling here. We completed school, no work, and we collect people from doing yellow people. But here is the case. This time, anytime we come to market, due to fuel prices that go high, actually we are suffering a lot. The government should just reduce the fuel price for us so that our work will be so successful for us. For now, we are hustling a lot.
Apart from fuel, are there other areas that you want government to start?
Yes, please. Actually, since in the market, how it costs is too high. Every day, there are increment, but no reduction. We plead on the government in order to help, at least. Everything will be so successful for our days.
Your name?
I'm Ahmed Pegla Abdullah, and I'm from Wa, the village called Busa.
I expect the government to reduce the fuel because that is not what he told us. He told us when we have money in Ghana here, but when he came to the power, we vote for him. He made the fuel go high than what we expect. And we are expecting him to let the fuel go down for us so that we can also get something to protect our families and our kids for our school. Like, what did I want to say? The fuel to reduce more for us. So that we can work. My name is Karim Mohammed.
To be coming out with a budget that will stop either, but I don't know whether they are going to reduce or if they are to increase, they should stop because the economy, the place is hard, it's very hard, and we cannot. We are also managing. If the real budget, how to even manage to buy fuel and then travel, it will be hard for us. So we have to.
Are there specific areas that you want the budget to tackle?
Let's say about transportation. Transportation, like I'm a transport officer. And then in the real budget, are we going to increase the price?
Okay, those were some of our friends from the streets of Wa. Thank you so much, Rafiq Salam, for bringing us that. But we're coming back into studio now to conclude on the conversation. The budget will be read this morning. Minister of Finance will be presenting it to Parliament, and you'll know how much 2022 is going to cost you. So just let's talk about expectations before we end this conversation. What are your, let me start with you. What are some of your major expectations from this budget?
Yeah, so I'll start with the same conversation we have in the taxes. Government has had the benefit of reviewing the effect of some of the taxes that were introduced in the previous budget. If one or two of those taxes are proving to be nuisance, as they call it, I am expecting government to scrap those taxes entirely if they are nuisance taxes. The reason why we say they are nuisance taxes is that they are not stimulating growth. They are adversely affecting businesses. And when you have taxes that are adversely affecting businesses, you will pay for it. You will get the revenue today, but businesses will collapse and then you have the effect. So if they are nuisance taxes, I'm expecting government to remove those taxes.
Okay.
And
also, Kweku Kwarteng talked about the fact that we have to scrap some of our expenditure. We have to reduce some of our major the major things that we spend on. Do you want to just comment on that as well? What's some of the things that you think we need to let go of?
I'm not expecting the introduction of some himself mentioned that the NACOP has put a lot of pressure on government.
Okay.
Other programs like free SHS have put pressure on government.
So we're not going to scrap free SHS though, are we?
So what I'm saying, I'm not expecting some of those social programs and even reliefs and all of those.
So new ones, you're not expecting new ones?
I'm not expecting new ones to come, because when you do that, you put a lot of pressure on government. Those are not growth-oriented policies. They are recurrent expenditure and they do not stimulate growth. I'm rather expecting policies that will aim at supporting the private sector, which are the engine of growth. They create sustainable employment for the youth. We have problem with unemployment. Government try to introduce programs, and I think successive government have introduced programs that have not been sustainable. It is the private sector that can give sustainable employment to the youth. And so if you are not introducing incentives and policies that will allow the private sector to grow and absorb the graduates that are coming out, these short-term government programs will not solve the unemployment problem. The private sector should be allowed to grow and absorb the youth that are graduating from school.
Okay. What about you?
Well, I think that Ghanaians should be prepared to face a very tougher year come 2022, because clearly if you listen to Kweku Kwarteng, he was trying to be careful not to mention certain decisions that have gone into the budget. Taxes will not be removed. Probably government will look at some taxes that did not really impact or did not generate revenue. However, because we want to move the country quickly away from fiscal consolidation to production-led growth, there will be some level of taxes in the budget. But the major concern is that we shouldn't introduce taxes that will have negative impact on the mass population. That is the major concern. We have to cut wastage, and that must start from the central government.
Okay.
That is very key. I am a pro-business person. I don't expect taxes that will impact on businesses, because businesses must grow, expand, and create opportunities for people. Overall, we have to expect, some tougher or difficult times ahead. But going forward, I think that there will be some openings in terms of economic expansion, so that we'll all smile into the future. So let me add that fiscal consolidation has not been achieved, even though this particular budget was hung on that, because if you look at the gap between revenue and expenditure, it is very huge, and that is where the major problem is. We don't want to see the monetary economy suffering because of the poor state of the fiscal economy. So we hope that government will find solutions. We want to see the implementation of the Ghana Cares or Batampa program, because that program will drive the economy going forward into the future anymore.
Okay, thank you so much for joining us this morning. I hear that it's been trending on social media that this year's budget is the Be Your Own Boss. budget. Do you have any idea of what? I think last year was Asempa also. Well, last year was the roads something, and there's been Asempa. There's been, you know. Have you guys heard any names for this year's budget?
Not really, not yet. But
okay.
I mean, if you say be your own boss, it clearly signifies that you have to. You have to carry your own issues.
But this is
ahead,
just what social media was saying, not necessarily from government. So maybe we just wait and find out exactly what it is. But a very big thank you to you, Charles Nixon Yeboah, Joy Business Editor, and Yao Apia Latte, who is a financial advisory partner at Deloitte. Thank you for spending the morning with us. We're grateful. And I'm sure you're going to be glued to your TV and listening to the budget. Well, thank you very much. And of course, the budget will be live here on Joy News, Joy 99.7 FM, and all our sister and brother stations. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with some more on Budget 2022.